Hello, my name is Nina. Welcome to my channel, Inside the Mind of a Human Predator. The usual disclaimers: I'm not a mental health professional. I'm here in my personal capacity discussing particular subjects from experience and from research. This video is about tiger parenting as it relates to narcissism. And right off the bat, I have to make another disclaimer. By no means am I making the claim that those who subscribe to the tiger parenting model are clinical narcissists. What I am trying to say is that there are certain maladaptive long-term behaviors that are part of that parenting style, that parenting model, that can be related to narcissism. However, because more often than not there is a particular cultural component involved in that type of parenting, it's more likely that those who engage in it are following their cultural norms because that is how they had been raised themselves. So, what is tiger parenting? This is a term that catapulted into popular culture in North America about a decade ago, and it related to East Asian cultures and their diasporas abroad. This is a type of parenting that is demanding, authoritarian, and strict. It presents itself as providing the child with a well-rounded education, not just academically, but also in terms of extracurricular creative pursuits, athletics, music, and so on. And it is something that is concerned about social status, public image. It talks about the value of hard work as something that leads to professional achievement, creative achievement, and it presents itself as a positive way to raise children. So even though it was initially associated with East Asian cultures, and you could see how the terminology reflects that, it's obviously something that has manifested in other cultures, has manifested in North America. It's something that I believe I was subject to, and I was born and raised in Moscow, Russia, which is one of the reasons why the subject is important to me, because I want to talk about the effects of this parenting a little bit later on in this video. So right off the bat, you could see that despite the strict, demanding aspects of this type of parenting, it presents itself as a positive, hard work, achievement. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it's about the way that achievement is used as the sole determining factor of the child's, and then later the adult's, value. So in the best case scenario, when the child wins a competition, gets the best grade on a test, that child is validated and complimented. And in a not so best case scenario, the child is told, as I had been growing up, of course you did well, you are my child, I expected nothing less of you. So even though this child may do as well as possible, or even be the best in whatever the category is, the child is not even complimented and validated for being the best, for engaging in lots of hard work to reach that particular goalpost. The child is being linked to the parent as a reflection of that parent's status, as an achievement of that parent. Now, think about what happens when the child does not win, when the child does not do as well as he or she were expected. And of course, we know it's impossible to always win. It's impossible to always do amazingly well at the same level in every subject, every extracurricular activity, so on and so forth. Well, The child may be denigrated. The child may even face physical punishment. So what does that do to the child's ability to cope emotionally as he or she grows up? As you can imagine, this is not a way to develop good coping skills. Negative emotions are constantly being suppressed in favor of hard work in any situation. Now, if we were talking about, I don't know, a really important competition, an Olympic athlete, you could see how that particular format may make sense in a particular context, but it does not make sense overall as a life strategy. And worse yet, when the child's value is exclusively attached to achievement, to winning, you can imagine how that child feels when he or she does not do as well as a child and as they grow up into adulthood, because necessarily you are going to face failures. So instead of teaching the child of how to cope with emotions, how to cope with negative emotions, and how to navigate failures as learning experiences, those skills are essentially absent. So you could look up statistically how often these children of tiger parents do not have these coping skills, face all kinds of issues, from depression to basically replicating this parenting model in their adult relationships. Let's say with a boss, where they cannot say no when they're constantly called in on the weekend, even though it's unreasonable. With a romantic partner, where they're constantly proving their worth through achievement because that is what they were taught as children. That is the model they're replicating in their adulthood. And if they encounter a maladaptive romantic partner, a narcissistic partner, or someone who exhibits other maladaptive traits, you could see how that would be used to manipulate them, and that would be used against them. And that is why some children of that parenting style end up in abusive situations, because that people pleasing, that inability to say no, that constant attempt to be validated through action, through things that they do, is something that they've learned, and to them that is the norm. Another negative response that children of tiger parents display consistently across the board is being a workaholic. Now, we live in a culture, and there are many other cultures who value hard work. But hard work for the sake of hard work, and working until your proverbial gas tank is completely empty, is not something that will benefit you over the long term, because you should also be available to your family, to your social circle, and lead a full life. But because the way these children were raised was by linking their value to performing, to achievement, to winning, to service, to doing well, this is what they do throughout their life. It is kind of a flight response. This is something that dawned on me very recently, even though I've understood the subject for a little while. When you're diving into work, well, first, it looks good. How can anyone say that work is a bad thing? This is our cultural value. Instead of, substance abuse, this person is a workaholic. This person works all the time. And I'm not talking about, obviously, scenarios where someone is forced to work because they're trying to meet particular financial goals, pay off their debts. I'm talking about work for the sake of work, work as an escape, work as a flight response. But also, something to note here is that there is no sense of satisfaction from achievement. It lasts for a little while. It's very fleeting. So let's say you made an employee of the month, you're complimented, you get some kind of a professional, a financial bonus at your job. But that feeling of satisfaction is only going to last for a couple of days. And then you're going to feel empty again, and you have to pursue the next thing that will, the next achievement, the next service goal of fundraising more than someone. It doesn't matter what it is, it's more about the framework and the pattern. You're going to feel empty until you reach that next achievement, and then you're going to feel empty again. So you're in this endless cycle of pursuing the next thing, the next achievement, and there's no end in sight until you recognize what you're doing and where that comes from. Until you recognize that the well-known term, the inner critic inside your head that is telling you that you are a failure, until you reach that next goalpost that is necessarily going to move, is the voice of your parent or caregiver. And until you address these issues and understand what's happening, you're going to be on this path. Now, what are some of the maladaptive traits, specifically, other than the ones that I've highlighted, that pertain to this style of parenting? Well, first, there are cultural values, which in and of themselves may not be negative, and it's about the way that they're being applied in this sort of unquestioning authoritarian way, where you do not question your parents' decisions, your grandparents' decisions, your caregivers' decisions. You do this because I said so, where the value of age and authority is equivalent, and it doesn't matter how maladaptive that particular individual is, or even abusive. The second one, of course, is the sense of honor, and as that pertains to public image. We know how important public image is to those who have certain narcissistic traits, that there is a particular persona that is being displayed to the world, which may be quite different from what goes on behind the scenes. Here, it's almost done as this family unit type of scenario. The other trait, of course, is the codependent relationship between the parent or the parents and the child that is being raised in this demanding, strict way, with validation being only attached to their achievement. And this codependent relationship progresses into adulthood, unless the object of it figures out what's going on. This is a dynamic that's going to be maintained throughout their life, and that is the dynamic, as I've mentioned, that they would replicate in their other relationships, professional, personal, romantic, and so forth. That constant people-pleasing and validation through service, through achievement with their, let's say, maladaptive romantic partner, their overbearing boss, and so forth. So that's another thing to note. There may be some covertly narcissistic traits on the part of the parents as well. Again, this may be a cultural model or a family model that this parent is following, which doesn't make it right, but it does explain what's going on. And that may be a significant level of manipulation and guilt tripping, so sort of more covert means. You may hear from this parent that unless you do this and this for me, for some kind of an achievement in the workplace, unless you marry a dentist or a doctor, this and this will happen. We've raised you, we've invested this much time into you, even though, as a 5-year-old, you probably had no say in what type of extracurricular groups your parents put you into. Therefore, you owe us. So it's control, it's manipulation through guilt tripping, it's the social status and the familial status of the parents or the grandparents. All of that would be involved in manipulating the target of that manipulation, and it might be done more covertly. I mean, they may go as far as exaggerating or faking an illness to get this child, who may be an adult at this stage, to do something for them. So all of these things are to be watched out for, because This child is likely a people pleaser with poor, porous boundaries and the inability to say no, especially when that pressure is coming from the one person or the two people who, or the whole family unit, with the dynamic where validation is constantly necessary for this person to feel adequate. You may also note that the well-known narcissistic golden child black sheep dynamic may play a role in tiger parenting, and the roles may change. It could be the same child that is the golden child. They're being validated for winning, for achieving, and they become the black sheep when they fail in the parent's view for doing something. Or it may be multiple children where the overachieving child is the golden child who is being complimented, having things purchased for that child, and the child who had failed at something is the black sheep that is being denigrated, not getting those material validations, gifts for failing to perform well on something. So it really depends on the particular family situation, but the golden child parameters are definitely something that could be present in the tiger parenting model, and you know what that could lead to. Most likely it's going to lead to what I described, but in a small percentage of the cases, the child himself or herself may end up displaying certain maladaptive narcissistic traits that would be culturally informed, but also informed because of this particular family dynamic. So what could be done differently? Well, of course, you could consult the myriad of psychologists. There are multiple wonderful articles on a popular site like Psychology Today that uses more terms about parenting that I can even remember: tiger parenting, panda parenting, jellyfish parenting, helicopter parenting. I'm sure you've heard many of them, but obviously I'm not advocating the other extreme of always saying yes, no structure, extreme leniency, but there has to be some kind of a happy medium. If you are pursuing a model of well-rounded education, extracurricular pursuits, then there has to be this other type of validation that the child is getting for being a helpful sibling. When they're little, they should be complimented for displaying empathy and sharing with their brother and sister. When they're a little bit older, they should be validating for, I don't know, helping clean up the kitchen. Things where their emotions are being engaged, where they are taught to understand what is happening, that it's okay to have negative emotions, to understand what their body feels like. Basically giving them this roadmap of developing decent coping skills, and that their value is not, I mean, it sounds very Captain Obvious, but because this is such a major trend, you cannot say it enough, where you need to do these little things that are going to have very serious repercussions in the positive or the negative when they grow up. You should help them out in their learning pursuit just enough that they're able also to display independent thinking, critical thinking skills, creative skills, so on and so forth. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you've experienced certain aspects of this type of parenting and how that affected you, and what you yourself are doing as a parent to avoid some of the pitfalls of this type of parenting. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.